County. Um, these times will pass. I think we're in for a few years, but they will pass, and that I think we need to look at some temporary measures, or think of the things that we're looking at as temporary. I am concerned about the lack of communication about the two budgets. I've been kind of amazed in meetings where the HHSA budget doesn't seem to be much of a concern. And the deficit, I keep hearing $2 million, $2 million, when in fact there's this $4 million. I don't understand the disconnect between the entirety of the county financial situation in the budget, and that the HHSA people are being kind of double hit. They make cuts that affect the general budget, and they still have their full deficit to deal with. So I think more than ever, transparency and communication is really important. We are in meet and confer, and that's why things like MTO and certainly after meet and confer, people or the county can proceed with layoffs. But agreement on MTO has not been reached yet. We met last Thursday. We'll be meeting the next 2 Thursdays. The timeline we were given was by Allison is that she wants to bring this to you on the 27th. And for an action. That's why I'm a little surprised about action today, because MTOs have not been agreed to. That said, I will say that the county workforce, more than any other workforce, I mean, there aren't many public or private sector people out there who would say, oh, my company's in trouble, here, I'll take money out of my pocket and give it to you to get back balance. That's really, to the public sector, to the county workers' credit. They are willing, ready, and able to come forward. There's the immediate money fixes. There's also some systemic changes that we think are more of a long-term discussion, and keep working on things that we'd like to see a partnership with county administration and the county workers. There are a few other things, and as I said, we're in meet and confer. We're not ready to bring specific proposals, but I don't want to come in the 11th hour and throw things at you that you never heard before. So you can expect us to be talking about teeter funding, that this might not be the best year to put a $2.5 million payment on this old bill. That half day off doesn't work near as well as full days off for people. The contracts, I'm glad to see that as an issue. I had brought to my attention a few days ago about contracts that are budgeted, but very little has been used, that there's room to cut contracts. Also, I think the work that contractors do could be picked up by some of the county workers rather than laying them off, put them onto contract work. The division between IT and IS in the IHS or HHSA and the county is absurd and needs to be dealt with. There's wasted money there. Travel, things like the sheriff, maybe on this temporary basis, and the county worker, the county residents need to realize that there have to be temporary changes in the way things are done. Sheriff's transporting people to Fort Bragg and to Willits, maybe that needs to be looked at, those transportation and overtime costs. Bed tax on camping facilities, this is something that's been done in other counties. It hasn't been done here. I understand that's $200,000 a year projected increase. Anyway, that the whole amount of this $4 million in these next 5.5 months, it really can't just come out of the county workers' pockets. It's not fair, and it's not the creative, and I know we can do better than that. So I do look forward to coming back with more specific proposals, but those are some of the thoughts we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmel, you wanted to respond?
I'd like to make a comment, Chairman Pinches. The board agenda item that I brought forward today was specifically for the purposes of sharing the state of the agency with this board and also with the public. And so the only action that I'm requesting today is just that you accept this very public report of the state of the agency today.
Yeah, that's very clear. You know, I just want to, Linda, address the transparency issue. You know, last week we had a presentation on the general fund side of our budget situation. And now this week, that's the reason we had this, to make sure that we are transparent with what's happening. So you comment on to be more transparent. I don't know how more transparent we can be than what we're doing here to make a detailed presentation here today. And last week we had a detailed presentation on the general fund side of our deficits. So
Yeah,
I think we're doing we're all in this together. Nobody's trying to hide anything. So I take exception to this idea that it's not transparent, because we're out there at every level we can to you know, and then you understand the meet and confer process to where we're kind of limited on that issue. But I think we're going the extra mile to put the issue out there to the public.
I agree completely that good steps are being made now. I think the fact that we're talking about the last 2 weeks, and that as Ms. Angelo said, and that I've heard, I have talked to department heads, I've talked to managers who don't know what's happening and are very surprised. They get information from us. You know, we put out an update to our membership and their manager says, I didn't know that. So while I'm not putting the transparency issue on any of you, and I'm sorry if I hit a nerve. I mean, as Ms. Angelo commented, she didn't know about both the $2 million deficits, and that that you're doing these now. I agree. Excellent presentation. I've heard presentations on the general fund shortages too, but I still see a lot of secrecy and a lot of protection of, you know, for instance, this is my contractor's budget, and I don't want, even though there's some savings here, if I give it up now, I'll never get it back. If people are encouraged to, you know, this is temporary, we are going to recover. It'll be a long, dry spell, but we are going to recover. Then you can get back your full amount for contractors. But the last 2 weeks have been a great improvement on transparency. Perhaps if it had been transparent for the last 2 years, we'd be in a little better place to at least address it.
And I'd like to remind you, 2 months ago, the state of California said that they had a $12 billion budget for the rest of this fiscal year. Now they extended that to a $42 billion budget over the next 18 months.
Yeah,
So,
imagine what next week's
we
gonna
can
be.
only operate basically on the information that the state tells it to a certain degree.
Absolutely.
So, but as far as this and I'll finalize on this transparency issue, but I believe that we are being as transparent as we can with the information. And that's one of the problems we're having, is the indecision of our state legislature. But I think that we're being upfront with not only county employees, but trying to keep the whole communities, because it's not just county employees that are affected, it's the service area, and it affects not only the people we deliver the services to, but their family and friends and everybody. So there's nobody going unaffected in this financial situation.
Yeah.
But we're trying to make sure, you know, to get as much information as it comes to us, to get it out there. But I think that this board has done the extra mile to get as much information as we can in a timely manner. I mean, we're putting it out there as soon as you heard Carmel state a little while ago, some information today was actually different than last week. So on that issue, but I'm not going to belabor that.
It is not the board who my comment was directed toward. It's the culture of the rest of the county. I think the board is doing their very best job.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have a question or two of the director, please. The question about taking